Tam Lin, a Scottish Folktale. Codroch Wood was thick and green and dark, and people said it was the home of fairy folk. One bright summer's day, Janet, the Earl's daughter, made up her mind to go and explore it for herself. She crept out of the castle and set off down the narrow path deep into the woods. After a while, Janet reached a small stone well in the middle of a clearing. There were roses climbing all over it, far more beautiful than any in the castle gardens, and Janet bent to pick one. No sooner had the stem broken off in her hand than Janet heard a voice that said, "Naughty, naughty Janet, who said you could come here into our wood and pick one of our roses?" Janet straightened up with a start. There before her stood the most handsome young knight she had ever seen. She tossed her hair proudly and replied, "How dare you speak to me like that? These woods belong to my father the Earl. I shall go wherever I choose and pick whatever flowers I like." Delight sparkled in the young man's eyes at her bold answer, and he threw back his head and laughed. "I am Tam Lin." Taking Janet's hand and spinning her around, "And today you shall stay here in the forest with me, and we shall play." All day long, Tam Lin and Janet wandered through Codroch Wood. They danced and sang and told each other stories, and by the evening they were both deeply in love. "I will not return to the castle without you," Janet vowed. "You must come with me, and I will beg my father to let you stay." "I cannot leave the wood," replied Tam Lin sadly. "I was once human, but many years ago, when I was riding through the forest, the fairy queen caught me and enchanted me. Now I am an elf knight, and I must ride by the side of the fairy queen to protect her for evermore. I only wish that I could be a man again, for then I would surely marry you." "Is there no way to break the spell?" Janet sighed. "There is," Tam Lin said gently, "but you must be very brave." "Tell me what I must do," Janet whispered. "This very night is Halloween," Tam Lin explained, "a night where fairies, goblins, and witches ride abroad. You must go to Mile Cross to hide there until midnight, for then I will come riding by. First you will see a troop of riders on black horses. Then there will be a troop on brown horses. Next will come riders on horses as white as milk, and in the middle of them will ride the fairy queen herself. I will be among the elf knights at her side, and I will wear only one glove so that you can recognize me easily. When you see me, you must run to my horse, seize its bridle, and drag me down. You must then hold me fast, no matter what happens, for the fairy folk will cast all sorts of spells on me to try to keep me. If you have the strength and the courage not to let go, the enchantment will at last be broken, and I will be yours." Tam Lin took Janet's hand. "Do you think you can do all of this?" he asked quietly. "Yes," breathed Janet. "Yes, I will." Later that night, when everyone else was fastly asleep, inside the castle, within the doors and the windows barred, Janet hid in the darkness on the moor at Mile Cross. Just before the stroke of midnight, she heard the thundering hooves, and out of the night appeared hundreds of black horses, bridles jangling and manes flying. On the backs were witches with bony fingers and sunken faces with dead staring eyes. Next, The brown horses galloped past, whining and snorting. The wrinkled goblins who rode them whipped them with willow switches and clutched their reins with wizened fingers. Then the white horses came, like the glowing ghosts through the gloom, wild-eyed and foaming at the mouth. And at the centre of the riders, Janet saw the beautiful fairy queen, sitting tall and fierce and proud. Quickly Janet searched for the rider with one glove. She plunged in amongst the pounding hooves, pulled down the enchanted elf knight, and held Tam Lin to herself as tight as she could. The fairy queen sent up unearthly wail that tore through the darkness, and all the hundreds of riders thundered around, shrieking and howling. Suddenly, Janet felt Tam Lin grow in her arms, and she realized that she was holding a huge, hairy bear. Still, she held him fast, and he writhed and into a hissing snake. Still, she clutched him in her arms, and he bucked into an angry, snapping wolf. Still, she held on tight, and he turned into a blazing branch that burned into her flesh. Still, Janet refused to let go, and in a flash of cold lightning, she saw that she was at last holding a naked human man. As she wrapped Tam Lin in her cloak, a haunting cry came from the fairy queen. Tam Lin, I would have rather have changed your eyes to wood and your heart to stone than lost you. Then suddenly the wild hunt was gone, disappeared into the night, and Janet and Tam Lin were left alone in the dark, windy moor to make their way home to the castle together. When love is spoken, when love has made itself clear, there are all kinds of stories, all kinds of ideas, all kinds of conditionings that beckons us to let go, to be fearful. But when we have the courage to hold on to that which we are finding, reclaiming, when we have the courage to hold on to what we are discovering is true love, when we have the courage to return over and over again to say yes, when we have that courage, we will receive.